the life you're living right now isn't truly yours. Every decision you've made, every goal you've chased, every belief you hold might be part of a script written long before you were born. A script so subtle you mistake it for free will. Carl Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The question is, how much of your life is truly yours? From the moment we open our eyes to the world, the script is already being written, not by our own hands, but by the quiet influence of voices that speak long before we understand their meaning. Family gives us the first lines, teaching us what is right and wrong, not as universal truths, but as inherited beliefs passed down like an heirloom no one dares question. Culture adds its chapter, filled with invisible rules about how we should look, speak, and even dream. Education steps in as the editor, trimming away the parts of us that don't fit the accepted storyline, replacing them with the correct ways to think and act. And then society itself, the grand stage, reminds us that there are roles available and roles that are not, all under the watchful eye of a system that rewards conformity and quietly resists anyone who dares improvise. We walk through life thinking we are the authors of our choices, when in reality, it's as if an unseen playwright hovers over every scene, deciding the tone, the setting, even the pauses between our words. We take our place in this drama without realizing it, convinced that the applause we hear is for us, when it is really for the character we've been taught to play. Carl Jung called this character the persona, the mask we present to the world so that we can be accepted. At first, it feels harmless, even necessary. The mask protects us from judgment, keeps us safe in the crowd, allows us to belong. But over time, we forget where the mask ends and where we begin. We start to believe that the lines written for us are our own thoughts. We mistake the stage lights for the sun. The truth, uncomfortable as it is that much of what we call free will may simply be our rehearsed role delivered with conviction. When was the last time you made a decision that wasn't influenced by what someone else might think? When did you last choose something without considering if it was acceptable, sensible, or approved by those watching? We may laugh at the idea of puppets on strings, yet we rarely notice the threads that guide our steps. And here lies the quiet danger. Because the moment we stop questioning the script, we stop noticing the hands that wrote it. This is not about blaming the actors around us, for they too are following their own assigned lines. It is about seeing the stage for what it is, recognizing that while the set looks solid, it is made of painted wood and thin fabric, easily torn away if we have the courage. But courage demands awareness, and awareness begins with asking a question most avoid. Whose life am I really living? Until that question is asked, the curtain never lifts, and the story remains the same, no matter how many times it is performed. We are told from a young age that we are free to choose, that the world is open, and our path is ours to walk. But what if that freedom is only a carefully painted backdrop, a set designed to give the illusion of endless options while keeping us inside invisible walls? The truth is, most of what we call choice exists within a narrow range already approved by the systems that raised us. You can choose your career, but only from the ones that are considered respectable. You can speak your mind, but only if your words fit within the limits of what is acceptable to say. You can dream, but only dreams that can be neatly explained to others without making them uncomfortable. This is the prison disguised as freedom, a space so convincing that most people never even suspect they are confined. Carl Jung would say that the persona thrives here. The mask fits perfectly because it was made to match the role we are expected to play. We mistake its comfort for authenticity, telling ourselves, "This is just who I am," when in reality, it is simply who we have been trained to be. Existentialist thinkers called this bad faith, when we pretend we are making authentic choices, but deep down, we are only avoiding the weight of true responsibility. Real freedom, they would argue, is terrifying because it forces us to stand alone without a script, without the reassurance of following a path others have walked before. And yet, most will choose the safety of the script over the uncertainty of writing their own story. We are taught to believe we are the authors of our lives, but the evidence suggests otherwise. The same predictable patterns play out generation after generation. Work to earn approval. Buy to prove success. Hide your doubts to avoid judgment. Smile even when you feel the opposite. These are not conscious choices. They are the lines of a play written long before we arrived. And the more we follow them, the more the walls of this invisible prison close in, not with force, but with comfort. It is easy to forget you are not free when the cage feels familiar. The hardest truth is that the key to escape has been in your pocket the whole time, but using it means risking everything you have ever known. The mask will have to come off. The stage will have to be abandoned. And for many, the fear of stepping into the unknown outweighs the desire to truly live. But for those willing to face that fear, the first taste of real freedom is like nothing else, sharp, unnerving, and unforgettable. It often starts with a quiet unease, a sense that something in your life does not quite fit. Maybe it's a conversation that lingers in your mind longer than it should, or a decision you make that feels less like a choice and more like an obligation. Then, without warning, the curtain shifts just enough for you to catch a glimpse of the machinery behind the stage. You notice patterns, how your reactions seem predictable, how your decisions mirror those of the people around you, how even your ambitions feel borrowed from someone else's vision. This is the first spark of awakening, the moment you realize there are strings guiding your movements. Carl Jung described this as meeting the shadow, the parts of yourself you have denied or buried because they didn't match the role you were expected to play. The shadow is inconvenient, disruptive, and yet it is also the most honest part of you. When it surfaces, you feel the pull between the person you are and the persona you have been performing. At first, the awareness is unsettling. You begin to see how much of your life has been driven by a need for approval, by the comfort of fitting in. You recognize how easily your emotions can be triggered by the same cues, as though someone knows exactly which buttons to press. And in that recognition comes both clarity and discomfort. Clarity because you finally see the strings. Discomfort because you understand they've been there all along. The danger is in stopping here, mistaking awareness for liberation. Seeing the strings does not make them disappear. It only shows you where they are. Many people stall at this stage, endlessly analyzing their patterns without ever changing them, as if naming the prison cell is the same as walking out of it. But real freedom requires more than recognition. It demands action. You will have to confront the systems, relationships, and habits that have shaped you. And in doing so, you will inevitably face resistance. The moment you pull on the strings, you disrupt the entire scene, and those who preferred you predictable will notice. Yet this discomfort is proof of progress. The mask begins to feel heavy. The lines you've recited for years start to sound false, even to your own ears. And while it would be easier to forget what you've seen, to return to the comfort of unconscious performance, something deep within refuses to let you. The awakening, once begun, cannot be undone. It is the whisper that says, if you can see the strings, you can cut them. But cutting them means stepping into a space with no guarantees, no rehearsals, no applause, only the raw, unscripted truth of your own life. When you decide to step off the stage and stop reading from the script, the world does not stand and applaud. At first, it grows quiet, an unnatural quiet, as if the audience is holding its breath, unsure of what you will do next. Then, slowly, the reactions begin. Some will look at you with confusion, asking why you've changed. Others will disguise their discomfort with polite concern, suggesting that perhaps you are overthinking things. And then there are those who will feel threatened, because your refusal to play your role forces them to question their own. Carl Jung understood this as a natural consequence of individuation, the process of becoming your true self. It is not a gentle transformation. It is a tearing away from the familiar. And that tearing makes noise. People you thought would support you may distance themselves, not because you have wronged them, but because they no longer recognize the person before them. You may lose invitations, lose the easy comfort of belonging, and in some cases, lose relationships entirely. This is the cost of breaking the script. You will be misunderstood. You will be called difficult, distant, arrogant, not because you are any of these things, but because you are no longer convenient. Society prefers the predictable. It rewards those who maintain the rhythm, even if that rhythm is leading them nowhere. When you step out of line, you disrupt the pattern, and disruption rarely comes without resistance. Existentialist thought prepares us for this. To live authentically, you must accept the weight of freedom, and with it, the solitude that often follows. You will have to make choices without the comfort of collective approval, trusting your own compass, even when others shake their heads. This is not the kind of freedom sold in glossy images or slogans. It is heavier, lonelier, and more demanding. But it is also the only kind that matters. There will be moments when you are tempted to step back into the role you left behind. The silence after the rupture can feel unbearable. The absence of constant validation may make you wonder if you made a mistake. Yet, if you listen closely, there is another voice beneath the doubt, a voice that grows stronger the longer you honor it. It is the voice of the self you were before the script was handed to you. Breaking the script is not a one-time act. It is a daily decision to remain loyal to that voice, even when it costs you. And while the price is high, loss, misunderstanding, the weight of standing alone, the reward is something the script could never give you. The unshakable knowledge that your life belongs to you. In time, that knowledge becomes its own form of peace, one that no applause could ever match. Once you have stepped away from the script, the question becomes, what now? The blank page before you can feel heavier than any role you've ever played, because now there is no one telling you what to say, how to act, or where to go. This is the moment where freedom turns from an abstract idea into a daily practice. Carl Jung would call it individuation in motion, the conscious act of aligning your outer life with the truths of your inner world. Rewriting your story is not about sudden reinvention or erasing the past. It is about becoming intentional with each choice, stripping away the habits and beliefs that were handed to you without your consent. One of the most powerful tools in this process is self-observation. Before you change anything, you begin by noticing. Notice when you agree to something you don't want to do. Notice when your words are shaped by the fear of how they will be received. Notice the moments you feel a subtle resistance inside, as if part of you is quietly saying, "This is not me." These moments are clues. They reveal the leftover lines from the old script. The next step is to ask questions that go deeper than the surface. Why am I doing this? What would I choose if I knew no one would judge me? Who am I when no one is watching? Existentialist thought tells us that meaning is not discovered. It is created. That means your story does not have to follow any pre-existing pattern unless you choose it. You can redefine success, reshape relationships, and even rebuild your daily life from the ground up. But to do this, you must let go of the need for certainty. The old script provided safety because it came with a map. Writing your own means walking without one, trusting that each step will reveal the next. This can feel unsettling at first, especially if you have lived most of your life seeking approval before acting. Yet the more you practice choosing from your own truth, the stronger your sense of direction becomes. The key is to begin small. Change one habit, one response, one pattern at a time. Each change is a sentence in your new story, a piece of evidence that you are no longer bound by the old lines. Over time, those small shifts accumulate, and you will look back to realize you have created a life that feels like your own. It will not be perfect, nor will it be without struggle, but it will be yours. And that alone makes it worth every step. There comes a point in the journey when you no longer wait for someone else to approve your decisions, when you stop asking if it is acceptable to be who you are. This is the moment you begin living without permission. It does not happen in a single dramatic act. It grows quietly, like a seed pushing through the soil. At first, you may hesitate, glancing over your shoulder to see if anyone notices the change. But slowly, the habit of seeking validation weakens, and a new rhythm emerges, one that belongs entirely to you. Carl Jung believed that individuation requires this detachment from external authority, because as long as you need someone else to confirm your worth, you are still bound to their expectations. Living without permission is not about defiance for its own sake. It is about alignment. It means acting from your own convictions, even when they differ from the crowd's. It means trusting your inner compass more than the voices around you. And it means accepting that some will misinterpret your choices, projecting their own fears onto your independence. There will be those who call you selfish for putting your well-being first, or distant because you no longer entertain the roles you once played for their comfort. This is inevitable because your freedom disrupts the unspoken agreements that kept the dynamics in place. But what they see as distance is in truth sovereignty, the ability to be fully present in your own life without being pulled into roles that betray your authenticity. Existentialists warned us that this kind of freedom comes with responsibility. When you no longer wait for permission, there is no one to blame if the path becomes difficult. You are both the author and the one who must live with each chapter you create. That weight can be daunting, but it is also the foundation of real empowerment. In this space, you will find a deeper kind of hope, not the fragile hope that depends on circumstances, but the resilient hope that grows from knowing you have the ability to choose again and again, no matter what comes. Over time, the absence of external approval stops feeling like a loss and begins to feel like space. Space to explore, to make mistakes, to rebuild, and to live in ways that cannot be measured by anyone else's standards. This is the quiet victory of living without permission. You no longer need the world to agree with you in order to move forward. You simply move, and in doing so, you reclaim a life that is entirely, unquestionably, your own. Looking back, you can see the arc of this journey. From the moment you first questioned whether your life was truly yours, through the unsettling realization of the invisible script, to the courage of tearing it apart and writing your own. You have stepped away from the mask, from the predictable lines, from the safe illusions that once kept you small. You've tasted what it means to live without permission. And though the path is not easy, it carries something the script never could: your truth. Carl Jung taught that the process of becoming whole demands both courage and sacrifice. Existentialists reminded us that freedom is not given, it is claimed. Now you stand here, holding that freedom, knowing it will demand something of you every single day. But in return, it will give you something no applause, no approval, no role could ever match: the unshakable certainty that your life belongs to you. And yet, as powerful as this freedom is, it is not immune to the forces waiting outside your door. There is another script, one far more subtle, far more seductive, that does not bind you with rules or obligations, but with comfort. A force that does not demand your obedience, but lulls you into giving it willingly. It is not fear that keeps you inside this cage. It is pleasure. And if you do not see it coming, it will wrap you in velvet chains and make you believe you are still free. In the next part of this journey, we will uncover pleasure is the enemy. Aldous Huxley's forgotten warning. A truth so quietly dangerous that most will never notice it until it's too late.